Thank you. For those for anyone who is going to miss tonight, we have said we will record this workshop so that we can have it uploaded on our private YouTube channel and people can watch it later. So thank you for being here, but anyone else who was not able to be here will be able to hear from our speakers tonight. But I do want to say at any time throughout our meeting, Mrs. Knapp and I will be monitoring the chat room. So if she's speaking, I'll be monitoring and vice versa. So if you had any questions or comments that you think we need to tackle tonight or at a later time, we can definitely do that. But at least we'll have documentation of the things that you're wondering about. And we do want to hear from you. And we'll talk more of that at the end of our presentation tonight about going forward from here. We will have some other curriculum nights coming up, but like I said, at the end of this workshop, we'll talk more about that. So to get us started tonight, I just want to share with everyone a short little video to get our night kicked off. It's about a 5-minute video, and it is a sped up version of a child's work cycle, morning work cycle. It's a very good video. The link, all this entire presentation I will have for the attendees tonight. I will send you a copy of our slides, which obviously will be also have that link included if you want to watch it or share it with someone else. But it's a really cool little video of the journey of a little boy in his Montessori work cycle, because we all know as new parents or new to Montessori, you often you probably wonder every day, what is my child doing? Because you know, everyone knows when you ask a child, what'd you do today? What do they say? They tell you what they ate for snack. And that's about all they can remember. So this will just give you an idea of what a typical day looks like for a child. So let's get right into that. And then after we see the video, I'll come back for a short moment, and then we'll allow Dr. King to take it away, okay? So let me start sharing my screen here, and we will get to the video. Sorry, let me get back to my presentation. And now I can share it. Okay, thumbs up, Rebecca, if you can see my screen. Yep, okay. All right, we will go, and hopefully you can hear the video. Becca? Thumbs up, thank you.
Mrs. Campbell, I cannot hear. Am I supposed to be hearing it?
Yeah.
We can see him, but I can't hear him.
That's okay, it's not important, it's just music playing.
that the end of the video, Mrs. Campbell?
Yes, that's the end. So I'm sorry you couldn't hear. It was just music playing while that sped up video was going on. But what I wanted you to see in that video is obviously, like I said, the typical sort of work cycle and how, oops, let me let someone in here. All that happened within a morning work cycle. And it doesn't just happen immediately. We saw in the description of this video, this is a second-year Montessori child. And obviously that child has had time with the works and things like that. But what we need to recognize is that every child is an individual, and in order to recognize those individual needs, we have to understand as the adults, the teachers, or the parents, that many things developmentally happen for them to be able to get to that point. And so Dr. King is now going to share with us the philosophy behind the development. And there's like 4 main ways that Montessorians learn about development, and she is going to share those with us tonight. Dr. King, would you take it away? I'm going to share something that you told me to share in the beginning. Do you want that now?
In about 1 minute.
Okay, you tell me when and I'll do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Mrs. Campbell, for this kind invitation and opportunity to be with all the parents, even though it's virtually.
Yes.
I've had many roles in my life, and my current one as Jameson's Nana is near and dear to my heart. I get the privilege of dropping him off in Carline and picking him up in Carline, interacting with the staff, and hearing about his day. What a joy. And I suspect many of you have the same role and the same cause for celebration. In the next several minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, I look forward to sharing with you some general information about Montessori philosophy. And it's interesting, but Montessori is a person, a philosophy, and a program. And as you might suspect, the programs or schools derive their principles and practices from Dr. Maria Montessori, her experiences, her ideas, and her worldview. She was born in Italy in 1870 and died in May of 1952. And it is incredible that today there are about 20,000 Montessori schools around the world, including 5,000 just here in the US. Mrs. Campbell, would you screen share the next part? Thank you. Well, of all of those schools, the parents, children, and families made their way to this particular school, which in my opinion is a gem, a treasure. What drew me here was it shouted welcome from every single person. Every time they talked, they reached out. And it is indeed a community of vibrant people in a place of beauty and radical hospitality for the purpose of teaching and learning. And just imagine the gift you are giving your children to have them immersed in this environment every day. If we want to explore the question, why Montessori and why now, which you may be asking yourself, it's important that we examine the life and the character of Dr. Maria Montessori. Hopefully, these words that I wrote a while ago will capture the essence of her life's work and her philosophy. I invite you to read along if you'd like. Her philosophy is born out of the scientific mind of a medical doctor, born out of the careful and cross-cultural observation of an anthropologist, born out of the strength and courage of a human rights advocate, born out of the struggle and insight of a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, born out of the wisdom and understanding of a global citizen, born out of the compassion and intuition of a Catholic deeply influenced by Eastern spirituality, born out of the great love of a mother for her son and of a teacher for each and every one of her students. For these reasons and more, the Montessori philosophy continues to thrive and serve children and communities from its humble beginning in Rome over 100 years ago until today. These qualities, woven together, serve the development of the whole human being. Thus, they are helpful to all children, regardless of category or label, country or language, size of their challenges, or if their gifts and talents are visible or hidden. And my question to you today is, will you join this worldwide educational initiative and make a difference in the lives of those who stand before you? Thank you, Jamie. You can put it down now. I have no doubt of your answer to that last question. Your very presence gives me the answer. So right now, I invite you to go to the chat and just enter in one quality, or maybe two, that you hope to foster in your child. You can begin at any moment.
We've got nice responses, Dr. King.
Yes, it
Very
is.
good.
It just fills me with joy to see these responses. And someone wrote, all of those. I agree. I agree. And because of the way Montessori was developed from her observations around the world, these were the things that she emphasized in her education, because she believed education is an aid to life. I didn't see in this chat list, I want my child to score high on those standardized tests. I want my child to get all A's. I believe that we don't have these qualities emerge through mandates. It's very hard to say, I demand that you be kind. You must be peaceful. Read this worksheet and you will be inquisitive. No, these have to come about by emerging. And our task as parents and teachers and community members is to create conditions so these traits that you mentioned, such as empathy and kindness and peace, so they emerge. Now, I'll share with you about 4 different main concepts that are used in Montessori education and Montessori philosophy to bring about these very traits that you mentioned. And there's often a joke, right, that children don't come with instruction manuals. Sometimes we wish they would. But these are our guidelines that we follow, and maybe you will follow as you come to understand what they are. So the first concept is called the absorbent mind. Well, Montessori realized that from birth to 6, the mind and brain of the child is different. It is an absorbent mind. Think of a sponge. It absorbs every single thing. That means everything we do as parents and teachers is education. The interesting part about all this, it's great to have the absorbent mind, but they can't sort out. I want to learn these kind words I want to learn, but I don't want to learn the ones that may be harmful. They learn everything, our tone of voice, they learn our language preferences, our food preferences, everything. And it seems quite effortlessly that when they do that. And we take on that, whatever we learn in that age through our absorbent mind, as we adapt to our culture and time and place. So much so that people can often recognize where we're from by our language. My example is, when I moved from Pennsylvania to Tennessee in my 30s, people would often say to me, you're not from here, are you? And I'd say, well, no. Why did you say that? He said, well, you asked us where, for example, where is Maryville? I said, right, I need to go there and I need to know where it is. And they said, I think you might be talking about Maryville. I said, yes, right, Maryville. That's what I meant, Maryville. And that's a small example, but one that is so indicative of the absorbent mind. Perhaps those of you from Pittsburgh may have some of the same experience because you have your own way of speaking. Then, I don't know about you, but my children would often repeat things that I had said or they had heard that I may not have wanted them to repeat. And yet I heard myself saying them either in that tone or someone else just at the right time. They capture everything. So some of us wish we had this absorbent mind when we're trying to learn a second language, right? When we're in our 20s. We wish it were so easy as when they were young. So how does this help you at home? This, I would ask you just to be aware, to pause and put into your environment those things that you hope for your children. If you want them to be inquisitive, allow them to explore. If you want them to be independent, help them do things by themselves. And if you want them to appreciate other children, perhaps you also need to appreciate other people. So that's one way. Okay, the next major concept is sensitive periods. These are, they take place from birth to age 6, and our brains develop and mature at different stages of life. And there are optimum periods for specific development of areas of the brain. And these are times when it's easier to learn something than it is later on. And Montessori discovered these sensitive periods by her observations around the world. And current scientists validate her findings, and they call these windows of opportunity. And some of these examples of sensitive periods are when to learn language, movement, order, math, attraction to small objects. If you want to find a button, you just ask the toddler. They will find it for you. And grace and courtesy, toilet learning, and so forth. And there's a chart and guide that you will get in your resources for all of the sensitive periods. And you might say, well, how's that going to benefit me at home? Well, again, if you are aware of your child's intense interests, and when possible, foster it by giving him or her the opportunity and the experiences to develop that area of expertise, it will be the easiest for him or her to learn it at that time. And why not go with the tide when it's easy, right? Some examples of this might be when your child is learning to walk, provide opportunities for him to practice. Or when you want them to say hello to neighbors when we can, when we're allowed to shake hands again, or wave, or say goodbye to Aunt Susie or Uncle Bob, give them practices or give them opportunities to practice this. Again, the sensitive periods. The third area, the concept, is called the 4 planes of development. And these are Montessori's words to describe the 4 planes of development. The child passes through certain phases, each of which has its own particular needs. The characteristics of each are so different that the passages from one phase to another have been described by certain psychologists as rebirths. Again, the chart and descriptions of each plane, they will be in your resources. But the 4 planes are ages 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and 18 to 24. And ask any parent or grandparent of children and how they were at different stages, and they're going to give you these different views. In the first plane, the children always ask, what is that? I mean, how many times have you heard, what's that? What's that? If it's a sound up above and like an airplane, that's Jameson's favorite. What's that? In the second plane, the question is, why or how is that? The third plane is, who am I? And the fourth plane is, what will I do? It's the growth of from birth to age 24. And most of you are concerned with the first plane. So how will this information benefit you at home? Well, if you think about what the characteristics are of this first plane, again, you can create conditions for this, these characteristics to develop. One example is the need for purposeful work at this age. So I ask you, might they help you fold the clothes, stir the oatmeal, hang up her hat, bring in the mail, bring in the garbage cans? All of those things are very purposeful work, and may it be so. Finally, and the last concept is called human tendencies. This happens to be one of my favorites. I would often have the students memorize these because I think they're so important for children and adults. And they're actually unchanging and individual.
We need to re-plug it in.
And there are 11 of them. And I'm not asking you to memorize them, but they will be in your resources. They are things like, I'll just read them: order, orientation, exploration, communication, activity, manipulation, work, repetition, exactness, abstraction, and self-perfection. And if you think about these and think about a time when you moved. First of all, order. Does anyone know where the plates are? What about the car keys? How about orientation? You found the grocery store and now everything circles around the grocery store. Like, how far from the grocery store is it? And it's just like toddlers, right? They are with the mother and they go out and explore the world and come back right again. And then exploration, if you've moved. I know there's a park around here somewhere. Does anybody know where there's a park? I mean, on and on. But as parents, probably the thing that you will recall is something I did often, is repetition. I wonder if any of you out there have been asked over and over and over again to read the exact same book at bedtime. And you dare not skip a page or a word, right? So I invite you to remember that your children are not out to get you. Smile and remember that repetition is a human tendency. And enjoy in the moment. You might look at these tendencies for yourself as well as your child to see where your life is in imbalance and where it's out of balance. We could go on for a very long time, and I would invite any of you, once COVID is beyond, for coffee and conversation, and we can discuss these further. Meanwhile, I will turn the mic back over to Jamie or Rebecca and give you my heartfelt thanks for your presence and listening this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. King. You did that so much better than I could, because I would have gone on and on and on. And you did such a great job of like bringing that into the home, and that's exactly what we needed. And a good segue to this into Mrs. Knepp is going to be that, you know, Dr. King touched on it already, but she said Montessori is just not, it's not just a philosophy, it's not just a pedagogy, it's not just a, we're going to the Montessori school, it is truly a way of life. So Mrs. Knepp is going to tell us more about how to prepare now our environments and how we prepare our environments as a school to then help foster all these wonderful tendencies and help nurture that absorbent mind and things like that. So Mrs. Knepp, I'm going to give the screen share to help guide us. And of course, remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I will be monitoring that while Mrs. Knepp is sharing about the prepared environment and into some of the language we share with children and sort of what else we can do as parents and caregivers to support our Montessori children. So I'm going to present now, Mrs. Knepp, and then you tell me when you're ready for the next slide, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing Mrs. Campbell hasn't mentioned, but we're going to touch briefly on each slide. And if there's more interest, we can form another Zoom meeting or parent ed about a specific topic that we cover, or like she said, ask questions in the chat and we can explore them further. But why the prepared environment? So in school, our entire environment is designed to promote concentration, coordination of both fine motor and gross motor, order, and independence. Go ahead, Mrs. Campbell. This is an example of a Montessori prepared environment. You might notice the low shelves for the toddler. The toddler can reach everything. The shelves in the primary classroom are arranged from left to right, top to bottom. So they're very sequential and predictable. The children know where they need to go for materials. The classroom is orderly and beautiful, and everything has its place. And this is to promote success in the classroom for the children. You might wonder how this could correlate to your house. The next pictures are the prepared environment of a home. And that's where we really get into the meat of this presentation, is what you can do at home. And as far as preparing your home, I challenge you to think about your house and think about how in each room of your house, is there a way that your child can be successful? Can they do something or contribute to something in each room? What can they do for themselves in their bedroom? Do they have access to their clothing? Can they climb in and out of their bed? Do they have books that they can read before bed? If not, these are things that can promote independence for them. We will get into also power struggles with clothing. We'll talk about that with clothing, about limiting choice, but that will be later on in the presentation. Other ways that you can prepare your home environment, in your living room. If you have limited toys, limited activities, they'll know what they want to play with. This will promote concentration. They'll use the toys more purposefully. We have a special place in the classroom for each thing, and that's so that the children, again, have order. In your home, sometimes this is difficult. Something I would suggest is rotating toys. It brings them back to life when you pull them out of the closet. My son personally loves to go into, can we go in that bin in the closet and see which we can change out? And then he's more interested in it again. My favorite area in the house to work with children and in school is the kitchen. Do you have child-sized tools that they can help you? Do they have access to their dishes or to a water source where they can get a drink? Is there a basket of snacks that they can have access to? These are all things that they have in the classroom that you can have in your home. In the bathroom, can they get on and off the toilet? Can they wash their hands and access soap? Do they have their toothbrush? Anything that they need in the bathroom, can they do that? What about when they're taking a bath? Are you encouraging them to wash their hair? That's something they can do for themselves. When they can do those things, it builds their confidence. I briefly touched on the closet. Is there a space maybe in a closet that the whole family shares for a basket with their things? Small hooks on the inside of the door for them to hang their coats. Things like that. Before we begin, we're going to talk about the prepared teacher and the prepared parent. But I just want to play a quick game before we get into this too much. So this is just a following direction game. So right now, I just want you to follow directions as best you can.
I'm gonna stop share. Is that fine?
Sure.
Okay, so we can see everyone. Okay.
Okay. And if you want, it might be fun if you turn on your
Turn
video.
on your camera.
If you want, Zoom games are fun.
If you can.
So the directions are: don't sit, don't keep your hands in your lap, and don't close your mouth.
Okay.
Would it be easier if you heard stand up, put your hands in the air, and open your mouth? That is an example of a prepared parent or a prepared teacher telling a child what they want them to do. In Montessori, we often try to tell the children what we want them to do. When you tell them what you don't want them to do, there's confusion. What do you want me to do? Because if I say, don't run, they can skip, they can hop, they can jump. But if I say, please walk, there's no confusion.
Mhm.
Our next fun game, if you're ready, please repeat after me. Make an OK sign. Put the OK sign on your cheek. Put the OK sign on your forehead. Put the OK sign on your chin. Put the OK sign on your ear. All right. It looks like most people did well, but if you had your OK sign on your ear or on your nose, you were watching me and doing what I was doing. So that goes to what Dr. King was saying about modeling your behavior. So if you don't clean up your briefcase or your dishes after a meal, your child is likely not going to clean up their toys. If you speak to your spouse or your children in a certain way, chances are your child will speak to others in that way too. So we want to model our desired behaviors, and we want to state behaviors that we want to see. For example, in the classroom, please walk. The other thing that we need to remember is we should always be kind, firm, and consistent. All things pretty much come back to that. Kind, firm, and consistent. Consistency is really key, especially at this age. Children are looking for boundaries. They're wondering, where are the boundaries? If I ask tomorrow, are they going to be the same? If I ask Mrs. Campbell, are they going to be the same as Mrs. Knapp? What about if I ask Mrs. German? Where are my boundaries? If I ask this parent, and then I ask my babysitter or my nanny, where are the boundaries? When children have the same boundaries, they feel safe, and it's easier for them to cooperate because their expectations are always the same. We also want to think ahead about possible scenarios that could cause problems. In my world, something I think ahead about is getting to work on time. So my son loves TV. He doesn't watch a whole lot of it, but if I were to allow him to watch TV in the morning, it would be very hard to get out the door on time. So I think ahead and I say, we'll watch TV on Friday. So I eliminate the problem altogether. So if you think ahead about what might be a problem, leaving the park could be a problem. So you might say, first we're going to play, I'll give you a warning, and then we'll leave. So we're leaving in 5 minutes. 5 minutes up, time to leave. The other thing that we do is we speak to children. Montessorians tend to speak to children a little differently than some people might. We might say, I see that you're crying if a child falls down, or you look angry, or we might give comments about what we see to allow them to tell us what they're feeling. If they're having trouble labeling their emotions, we might help them say, give words to their emotions. You're confused, are you frustrated? We'll talk about those things. I often like to ask I wonder statements. If there's, for example, if there are toys scattered on the floor, you might say, I wonder what would happen if I stepped on these. Or I wonder what would happen if the dog chewed on these while we're sleeping tonight, in a way to kind of help children know, oh, think they might get damaged. We have to put them away. The other thing with that is you can ask questions instead of saying, put your toys away. You might say, what do we need to do before we go to bed? They might say, put my toys away, brush. If your child doesn't want to brush their teeth, what do we need to do to keep our mouth healthy? What do we need to do so that we don't get cavities? And your child will answer, brush your teeth. Instead of giving orders, you can ask questions so that they can answer them, and we find that they're usually a little bit more compliant. When they aren't compliant, it's best to use logical consequences or natural consequences. This time of year, the coat conversation comes up, or the coat debate. Child doesn't want to wear a coat. It's not freezing right now. If my son wouldn't wear a coat after I asked him, I would probably just give it and say, okay. And maybe he would be cold then. Your natural consequence is you chose not to wear your coat, and now you're cold. Now, when it would be freezing, that would be a non-negotiable. And I would have to say, if you don't wear your coat, then we can't go outside. Or I would say, when you put on your coat, we can go outside. So then we talk about don't sweat the small stuff. That's kind of what I was talking about. Right now, with the temperature, it's not that big of a deal to go out with a coat. To me, it might be to you. I can't speak for everyone, but don't sweat the small stuff. Clothing, do you want to wear these jeans or this skirt? You can give limited choices so that they have the choice, they have the option to choose. And then always allow for as much independence as possible. This also brings up follow through. This goes with the consistency piece as well. If you don't follow through your statements, or they're not going to mean anything. If you say, if you don't pick up your toys, I'm going to throw them all in the trash, but you know that you're not going to throw them in the trash, that's not going to work. I catch myself doing the same thing. You know, I get frustrated and I want to make some outrageous, if you don't do this, then. But I know that what I say, I have to be willing to do, or my words will lose credibility. And I touched on this a little bit earlier. All caregivers need to be on the same page. Caregivers at home, you need to be on a united front. I know in my house, our son will ask me, well, what if I ask Daddy? Because now he knows that he could ask Daddy, but I might interject and say, oh, I've already said no treats, or whatever the case may be. So your child will test those boundaries as well. So it's important to be on the same front as your partners in your child rearing. Freedom within limits. This is something that we use in the classroom. Sometimes it's a little misunderstood. Some people think that Montessori children do whatever they want. They can choose whatever work they want to do. But that's not the case. The children in the classrooms need to have lessons on the works that they would like to do, or that the teacher has observed that they're ready for. In the home, that might be, the freedom might be, as I said earlier, do you want to wear this shirt or this shirt? So either way, they're still putting on a shirt, but they have a choice. So often giving them two options is that's an example of freedom within limits. In the classroom, they are able to move, they're able to talk to one another, they're able to use a work and repeat as long as they would like. It's the next person's turn when the person using the material puts it back on the shelf. Self-help skills, let me do it myself. This is one of the main, great thing that you can do very easily at home. We have some pictures here on the next slide. On the right, this little guy, this is my son, who's about 15 months in this picture. He is attempting to dress himself. We started this very young. He's approximately 15 months old there. You can see that he has one pant leg on and he's attempting to put on his socks. He's trying. He would have needed help at this point, but he probably did this for about 15 minutes. So I had to allow him to give him that time. You'll notice that he is very little, so it was easier for him to sit on a step. If you have a toddler, it might be easier for them to sit on a stool or something like that. Because obviously they're not able to stand and get into their pants. But even a child this age can dress themselves. And I'm sure a lot of you found they can undress themselves. On the left, he's attempting to tie his shoes, or tie my shoes. So that's something that we practice, because currently he has Velcro shoes. When he has tie shoes, when he can tie his shoes, he'll wear them to school. This collage is different things that your child can do at home. On the top left, Paul is emptying the dishwasher. He was not quite able to load the dishwasher. Those are real plates. They would break for sure, but at this age, he was able to lift the plates up and hand them to me. We always have a dustpan in our house. It's actually on a hook. He helps out with different projects. In the painting picture here, he's painting a bookshelf that was put in his room. In the spring, they can help with planting. Sometimes if you're doing planting, it can be something as easy as they're digging, scooping from one place to another, but just, this is a purposeful work. He then watered those plants and put it in our garden. The picture on the bottom left, he's washing his dishes, cleaning his straw. The middle picture here on the bottom is he's using loppers. This is my example of freedom within limits in the yard. I didn't feel it was safe for him to use rose cutters because that was too close to his finger. But if I gave him loppers, his fingers weren't near it. Again, this is a choice that you might not be comfortable with, but after he'd just been using other tools, it was okay for us. And the last picture is him raking leaves in the toddler playground. So those are just a few jobs that you can do, or your child can do at home. And again, all of those jobs and the things that they can do that were pictured will help with that concentration, coordination, order, and independence in your prepared environment of your home. So fostering intrinsic motivation versus praise and reward, that is when we praise the child for their efforts. So it's not necessarily the child. We might say, I see that you made your bed by yourself. Way to go. Or if a child is in high school, oh, you got all A's? Wow, you studied really hard. You earned it. Instead of saying, good job, good girl. We say things like that. We might ask the child, tell me about your picture, kind of open-ended questions instead of, oh, that's so pretty, you did so good, which is very nice to say, but it's the child's work. We want to hear about it from them, and we want them to think that it's good. Jamie, did you want to? Grace and courtesy, this is actually part of our curriculum as well. Our three main rules are respect for ourselves, respect for others, and respect for the environment. If we follow those three things, you can function in your classroom. You can take that out into the world. If you're being loud, you're not respecting your friends. They're not able to concentrate. If you are, I don't know, pulling your neighbor's flowers, that's not respecting their environment. We have a peace curriculum that we use in the classroom. We use a peace rose as a communication tool. And something that you can use at home is how to interrupt. We interrupt, the children interrupt, they put their hand on the person's shoulder that they'd like to interrupt, and they wait. And this is something they do on a regular basis. I feel like I went pretty quickly. Is there anything in the chat? Is there anything?
I don't have anything in the chat as of yet. But I will say, just touching on the consistency part with all caregivers, I do think that that is one thing I see as the head of school that sort of comes back and circles back around a few times when we're dealing with, chatting between teachers and parents about whatever issue it might be. It might be a child behavior or a toilet learning issue, things like that. It seems that the two caregivers in the home, maybe mom and dad or a grandma even, they're on two different books, not even on the same two different pages, but really just two different books. And I feel like I could speak from firsthand here, because at first when I was relearning the Montessori way, my husband and I were not on the same page about Gabby, our little one. We had different styles and different ways to handle discipline and how to allow her to be independent. She had a whole house full of grown people trying to do everything for her, and it was not helpful for her. And I was very thankful that I had her with a teacher who recognized how pampered she was and sort of gave her that time to practice things on her own, even though I felt like I was the one helping her myself to try to be more independent for the Montessori environment. So I know all about that, and how, the progression from then to now, with Dad and I being on one page and him appreciating so much the independence that Gabby has gained from being in the Montessori school. And we both noticed the tremendous difference from our older children to now having Gabby matriculate through a Montessori program. It's like night and day. So I would say that consistency between, for both parents being on one page is huge. It's a game changer. So you have to really get everyone on board, even grandma, because grandma will give them anything. And sorry, Dr. King, you're a grandma now. One day I will be too, and I'll have the same sort of mentality. But it is important for us to tell grandmas and other caregivers that this is very important stuff here. We have to be the united front, and that's the way that the child's going to be most successful in allowing them to be that independent person. So I just wanted to add that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, don't mean to.
No, go ahead.
But we just had a comment, a question in the,
Oh, yep, I see
yeah.
it.
Okay.
The Peace
The
Rose, go
question
ahead.
was about the Peace Rose and how that translates into the home. So the Peace Rose is literally a artificial rose that we have in the classroom, and it's used as conflict resolution. For example, if Mrs. Campbell steps on my rug and knocks my work over and keeps walking, I might be very upset about that. So I would go to the Peace Rose. I would take the Peace Rose out of the vase and I would walk to her and I would say, Mrs. Campbell, I need to talk to you. And she would see the Peace Rose and know that I'm upset. I'm holding the Peace Rose, so it's my turn. And I might say, I was working really hard on the 45 layout and you kicked my work. Could you please be more careful next time? And then I would hand her the Peace Rose, and that is the indication that it is her turn to talk. And she might say, I'm sorry.
You might accept it or not.
Yeah, she might not, and that's how they work it back and forth. Then I might hand it to the person might say, well, I like your shirt. And they might say, we declare peace. And and then they take it back. Now, how it translates at home, I've actually used the Peace Rose in homes when I was not a Montessori teacher, or before I was a Montessori teacher, I was a nanny. That's how I found Montessori. Right out of college, I was working as a swim coach and a nanny, and the kids were at a Montessori school, and that's where I was invited to be an assistant and right away fell in love with it. And I realized that I was doing so much for the children that they could do for themselves. But one thing that I took immediately was the Peace Rose. And you can use a Peace Rose or a peace talking stick. On the playground, we'll use a peace leaf. And it really does empower the children to stick up for themselves, to express their feelings, to say, you know, it hurt my feelings when you said that you weren't my friend anymore.
It really gives everyone a voice. Like,
it teaches them to be their own advocate. It really does. So it can be social emotional. It can be, you kicked my work. And it teaches that turn taking. I've told you how I feel, and now it's your turn. And you might not be satisfied with what they said, so it can go back and forth. And sometimes it turns out to, we're not coming to an agreement right now. Let's give each other some space and return back to this. But it does offer a way to take turns and work out conflicts or disagreements.
And it's just a nice way to allow children to have their feelings. You know, we often shut down children in their feelings, and it's not okay, because we as adults, we're allowed to have our tantrums and get upset, and no one says anything, most times anyway. And then we immediately want to shut children down when they're upset and they're in a tantrum or they're in a fit or they're crying because their friend did something that they didn't like. But just validating their feelings and understanding that they're upset and they're allowed to be upset. And just sort of working through that. That's how we handle things in the Montessori classroom. And it's absolutely doable at home. I have retrained my whole brain to now handle those situations with my own child later in life, because all my other children, it was, you know, I had a total different way of thinking as far as discipline goes and how to rear children. But this one right here is definitely an effective tool in the classroom or at home to help children regulate their own feelings and then understand how someone else can be upset as well.
And we give them the words, I feel whatever, when you, whatever, next time, please.
Yes. Another thing that really is important for us at school and how you can help at home is Mrs. Knapp mentioned sort of giving, you know, choices, but then limiting some of those choices. So like, for instance, we had a huge problem one year of toddlers coming in full tutu gear, like dresses and tutus and, I mean, tulle everywhere. And so, you know, you will never know how hard it is to change a diaper in the toddler class with tulle, but setting them up for success in toileting or anything, just any part of their day, you know, preparing at home, saying this, maybe it's that this is your set of school clothes, and these are clothes you could wear to church or to a party or wherever. So sort of shutting that down, not even giving them the choice to wear those types of things to school would help eliminate those power struggles Mrs. Knapp talked about before. That is huge. I see them almost, almost daily in the car line, with, kids bringing in something from home, in the car with them even, and then they want to take it into school with them. If that was never in the car, or it never made it to the car, it wouldn't be a power struggle when they got to school, or things like that. Those are things that you can do as a parent to really help them sort of focus on what we're doing. We're on our way to school, we're getting ready to go to school, and preparing them to not have those sort of power struggle issues is so helpful. So again, going back to sort of the dress for success at school, we have that all in our, parent handbook and stuff like that, but you don't really realize how much those, prepping things at night and laying their clothes out ahead of time, letting them pick at night. I let Gabby pick this or this or this every night. What would you like to wear tomorrow? Laying things out at night so we know we have everything we need for school, being prepared, that sort of thing. Those help tremendously for the child's success at school. Mrs. Knapp, did you have anything further on that?
Nope, I think you've got it.
Okay. Well,
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. We have another question.
Parent balance.
Talk about parent balance. When your kids are upset, they ask for mommy.
I can speak to that.
Good.
I actually had a very big imbalance in our life, in our home family. My son always wanted my husband, because I think probably because I am the more rigid one. And it finally got to the point where we needed to be a team and say, well, right now, I see that you're upset, but I'm here. It's hard I'm not quite sure what you mean by upset, like maybe if they fall and want mommy. But
go ahead and who is Patrick? Go ahead and unmute and clarify a little bit for us what you mean by upset.
Hey, Rebecca, it's Blair.
Oh, hi, Blair.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I mean, upset can be anything from, falling is sort of the minor circumstance. That's not really our question. It's more when they're really emotional about something and we're trying to find the best balance, and they ask for one person.
My simple response, well, it wouldn't be easy, is if mommy is not available, I'm sorry, mommy is not available right now, but I can do this. Is it that mommy's not available, or this is
No, Blair, I think what you're saying is you would rather have a balance between him understanding he can go to mom or go to dad.
Well, and it's a balance in that we also want to appreciate that that is just as important.
Yeah.
And right, it's, I understand you want mommy, but we need to balance it. So yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I'm not available, but it's more, it's more that while we're balancing both being working parents, how do we find a combined approach so that, yeah.
Okay. You have to create those opportunities, I think. Dr. King, maybe you can speak more to this. I don't know, maybe you just jump in if you have something to add, but, creating those opportunities for dad to take over and making yourself unavailable is what I would say, because sometimes I have to step away because drama queen is in full gear, and I just am done dealing with it, and so dad takes over.
Me too.
But you know what I mean? And so those precious moments, take them and run, because I can't always be the one fixing or helping understand what is happening. I'm emotionally drained at the end of the day, so I'm like pushing off on dad a lot. I create opportunities to give it to dad. So that would be what my suggestion would be for that.
And to that, I also agree. I fall back on what I do in my house, as far as bedtime, bath, and stories. On the weeknights, my husband will take over, and then on the weekends, it's me. And when we first started that, my son didn't want me to read to him, which is heartbreaking but true. But it's a mommy night, So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that
Absolutely.
doesn't help the upset portion of it. I don't think.
But that goes away. I mean, once you create those opportunities and he understands that, yeah, dad is as important as mom, and does take on those same sort of like roles and things like that, it just starts, it'll
And
go away.
And I think too, you don't want to just brush them off.
No.
You can say, I care about you. I'm sorry that you're upset, and I'm working, so daddy's going to help you.
Yes.
So kind of those, so like I see that you're very upset, and I don't want you to be upset. And because I'm working, daddy's going to help, or because I'm making dinner, daddy's going to help.
Yes. Absolutely. I hope that helps, Blair. We all have a need for that balance, for sure.
No, that's helpful.
Yeah.
We'll put that in practice a little bit more and give you some feedback and see if
Absolutely.
we make it even better.
That would be great. But yeah, so it's all about trying to create as many opportunities for the child to be independent, and the child to, sort of work through their feelings and their emotions. It may seem cruel sometimes, especially when your heart just like aches, like, oh, I just want to hug him right now, or I just want to, rescue her from whatever.
Right.
We have to hold ourselves back sometimes, and it's only helping them grow and be more confident. We want that so much for them at this age, to build their confidence, and confident that they can be independent and self-regulate and things like that. Some of us adults are still not self-regulating, right, Dr. King?
When Mrs. Campbell just said rescue, it reminded me of something that I've heard in the past, is when children are putting their coats on or putting their shoes on or their socks on, if they're not overly frustrated, and you rescue them, I've heard people say rescue is robbery.
Yes.
So when you do things for your children that they are attempting to do for themselves, you're robbing them of the opportunity to be independent.
Absolutely. There's if any of you are wondering if your child should be able to do, I don't know, anything in related to like dressing themselves or putting on anything, zipping their coat, any of that, just know that we have a room full of toddlers who do those things like pros. I mean, because they've practiced and they've practiced and they've practiced. Not all of them can do it, no. But just know that they're 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. They are capable of so much. They can bake muffins from start to finish. After they've been taught. They're given lessons on everything in the classroom. We encourage you to do the same thing at home, teaching them how to do something first and then allowing that practice. And so they can keep concentrating and keep practicing and work at it, because they can do it. They can do so much. I mean, Montessori saved my entire career. When I was getting ready to quit teaching, it saved my entire career. Dr. Oglesby Pitts, who Dr. King knows, saved my career by sending me to a Montessori toddler program to see Montessori in action. If I would have never done that, I don't know where I would be today. I definitely wouldn't be the parent that I am today. But that was life changing. It was a pivot for me like none other in my life. So seeing all the things that little 1- and 2-year-olds could do, it just blew my mind. It made me wonder, as a parent who had 4 children already at that time, how much I've hindered my own kids in their life. And like Mrs. Neff said, they are absolutely, you're robbing them to do anything for them. I sat and thought about watching those toddlers, how much I have hindered their development by being in a hurry all the time and rushing and not giving the time for them to practice to do their, to tie their own shoes or brush their own hair. I was brushing my kids' teeth at like 4 and 5 years old. Like, I was like, what am I doing here? I was, practically feeding my kids at sometimes during those age groups when I, in my non-Montessori years. So not to go on and on, no, but you know, it was truly traumatic for me to find that these 1 and 2 year olds could do all these things. And I just thought, wow,
And they
who would have thought?
can do these things because they've had lessons. You've
Right.
shown, we're not just giving them, here's your coat, put it on.
No.
You know, showing them how, we're giving them time. We're going to help them, but we're going to help them in ways that are going to make them more independent.
Yes,
Give
create.
step-by-step things to do and the opportunity and the time to practice. So we're not just letting them, you know, when I say rescue is robbery, sometimes that comes across as a little abrasive, but it's not that we're not helping them, we're not doing it for them.
Right. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our workshop. I don't see any more questions in the chat. However, I do want to leave you with these additional resources. Again, I have everyone, I think I've captured everyone who's in the chat, not the chat, I'm sorry, everyone who's in the room tonight. I will be sending you this PowerPoint, as well as there's a link in Dr. King's philosophy segment of the human tendencies and the absorbent mind, all those things she went over, the 4 main developmental areas in that slide, as well as I've given you another link to our parent guide for distance learning, because that had a lot of what we talked about tonight as well, preparing your home. And then of course, these great Montessori parenting resources that we've all collectively shared to give to you, which are amazing books that you can check out at another time to help you on your Montessori journey with your child as a Montessori parent now. So we hope you enjoy those resources. Of course, we invite you to reach out to myself or Mrs. Knapp. Her email, and I will send this in the, when I send out the PowerPoint as well, I'll probably just add it to the slide here. You can reach her by email or myself, director@wpms.edu, and Mrs. Knapp is rknapp@wpms.edu. If you have any other topics that you think we should explore or talk about, we could have, like Dr. King said, coffee talk or whatever we can come up with. I'm sure we will hear from Dr. King again. We're so thankful that she's a part of our community and such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. I just can't imagine all the things we can do as Montessorians with her on our team too. So any of us you want to reach out to, we can absolutely make another workshop happen on a specific topic, whatever that might be. Just shoot us an email and say, hey, I would like to learn more about this. And we can absolutely talk about getting something together. Mrs. Knapp?
And I also just want to add before we close is that if you have a question specific to your child's teacher is really the one that's going to have those answers right now. And
Good point.
even when we're not in a pandemic setting, your child's teacher is with your child the most often. Teachers are accessible through their own email. They can call you back on Fridays. And our parent-teacher conferences are coming up. So if you have specific questions about your child's independence and how to help that grow, that should definitely be something you would address to your child's teacher.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That is the first line of communication. So thank you for saying that, Mrs. Knapp. You're absolutely right. Okay, if there are no other questions, I want to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Mary King, again. Thank you so much for your presentation. And thank you, Mrs. Knapp. You always have a wealth of knowledge as well. And I love hearing you talk about how we're to support our children at home. I've learned a ton from both of you. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad you were able to share with our families tonight. And I hope you've learned something about consistency between home and school, and you take these nuggets and put them in your pocket and pull them back out when you need them. So again, reach out to us if you have anything else. We look forward to seeing you at our next curriculum night. Help me with this. I think it's November 12th. Let me just double check. I think it's November 12th.
No, Mrs.
Nope.
Sherman, it's not November 12th.
I'm sorry, no, October 27th. Woo, I'm skipping weeks here. October 27th for our language and practical life. Thumbs up. Thanks, Mrs. German. Curriculum night, language and practical life, 7 o'clock on the 27th. We'll see you there. we're going to Zoom, but our teachers will be in the classroom with the materials to show you the areas of practical life and language. And the 12th is that's another curriculum night, but that's going to be on math and sensorial. So look for the calendar invites on those. Okay, everyone, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.